Welcome back to our channel, Soap fans. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the absolute madness unfolding in Port Charles. We are so incredibly grateful for this community and your endless passion for these stories. Grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive straight into the deep end of the latest drama. The camera pans across the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of General Hospital, but the real chill comes not from the clinical setting, but from the absolute ice running through Drew Kane's veins. The momentum of the entire summer just violently shifted on its axis, in a way that left me breathless. A man who was trapped in his own body, locked in a silent, terrifying prison by his own wife, is suddenly standing tall, breathing, and holding every single card in the deck. The impossible choices now facing Willow, Michael, Nina, and Jack Brennan are staggering, and the fallout is poised to completely shatter the landscape of the. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we just view Drew's trip to GH as a standard medical checkup. The way I interpret it, this was a masterclass in psychological warfare and one of the most compelling scenes of the year. When Drew finally got checked out at the hospital, the sheer disbelief radiating from Elizabeth Baldwin and Felicia Scorpio was palpable through the screen. I love the way the lighting seemed to cast long, ominous shadows across Drew's face as Elizabeth questioned how he made such a speedy recovery. It felt completely impossible to Liz, even with Drew standing right in front of her looking perfectly normal. I think the writer's choice to have him maintain this calm, almost eerie composure was brilliant because it made me feel the sheer terror of what he is holding back. I feel so incredibly validated by how Drew handled himself in that examination room because it proves he is playing a long, terrifying game. He didn't rat Willow out for the paralytic doses. He didn't scream about the torture she put him through. He simply stood there, letting the medical professionals marvel at his miraculous recovery while secretly plotting a revenge so cold it gave me. I believe that Drew's choice to skip going to the police is the ultimate power move. Handing Willow over to the PCPD would be too clean, too easy. The way I see it, Drew wants to dismantle her life piece by piece, just as she dismantled his autonomy. I know a lot of people in the fandom are saying this storyline is dragging, that Drew should have just marched into the station and had Willow arrested to speed up the pacing. But I actually think the slow burn is exactly what's needed, because I feel like the psychological torture of Willow waiting for the other shoe to drop is much more satisfying. This brings me to Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor. In Thursday's episode, Trina and Kai are completely perplexed by Drew's choice to skip going to the authorities. I believe having these two characters connect the wrong dots is a stroke of genius. They don't have a good grip on what actually happened, and watching them try to piece together the puzzle of Drew's near drowning and sudden recovery makes the world feel so incredibly lived in. I love that Trina, who is already dealing with so much stress from her music showcase, her stalker mystery, and her parents' endless drama, is now tangled in the periphery of this Kane family. I feel like Trina and Kai, assuming Willow tried to kill Drew again, especially since they know she shot him twice before, is a perfectly logical leap for them to make. The way I interpret their dialogue, the writers are using Trina and Kai as audience surrogates who only have half the facts, highlighting just how deeply buried the truth of Willow's paralytic scheme really is. Over at Windermere, the dynamic between Jack Brennan and Nina Reeves is absolutely fascinating right now, and I think it is producing some of the best character work on the soap. Brennan blaming himself for letting things get so out of hand and not being able to deliver the Drew dirt right away shows a surprising, compelling vulnerability from a man who is usually so composed. But Nina, pointing out that he still came through and helped Willow silence Drew, highlights her desperate, almost frantic need for control. I feel deeply fascinated by Nina's psychology here. She is ready to celebrate Willow's freedom, completely ignoring the reality that Drew still wants revenge despite the deal he. I believe Nina's blind spot when it comes to Willow is going to be her ultimate downfall, especially when she crosses paths with Ava Jerome. Ava putting Nina through a grilling session on Wednesday's show was spectacular television. I love the subtle shift in Ava's posture, the way she leaned in with that predatory gaze, sensing immediately that Nina was holding back information. Ava is a shark who smells blood in the water, and I think her suspicions are going to be the thread that unravels Nina's entire cover-up. I feel so incredibly tense watching them interact because every time Ava smirks and asks a pointed question, you can see the panic flashing behind Nina's eyes. The confrontation between Willow and Michael is, in my opinion, the absolute peak of their deeply fractured, toxic. Since their divorce, these two have been circling each other like warring titans, and Thursday's episode brought all that animosity to a boiling point. When Willow corners Michael for a fierce face-off over custody, the tension in the room is suffocating. I felt literal chills when Willow leaned in, her voice dripping with newfound dangerous confidence, and warned, "I gotta say, Michael, I really like my chances." The delivery of that line was absolute perfection. I feel like this is the best they've written Willow in years, because she is no longer the perpetual victim weeping in the corner. She is a cornered animal fighting for her survival. Michael trying to make a power play, only to end up surrendering to whatever Willow demands for now, highlights exactly how much leverage Willow thinks. I think Michael's cold, calculating Corinthos glare during that scene proved that he is just waiting for her to make a fatal mistake. The way I see it, Michael knows that Willow is hiding something massive regarding Drew's recovery, and he is playing the long game to ensure he gets full custody of Wiley and Amelia. I feel incredibly invested in this custody battle because it isn't just about the children anymore, it is about total domination. And then we have Jacinda Bracken. I completely understand why Jacinda is finding herself so utterly frustrated as Michael plays this long game against his ex-wife. Jacinda wants a fast Willow solution, and I think her impatience is going to be the wild card in Michael's carefully constructed strategy. I believe Jacinda's growing frustration is the perfect catalyst to force Michael's hand. I love how the writers are using her to highlight Michael's lingering, toxic obsession with controlling Willow's life. I feel like Jacinda's exasperated sighs and crossed arms in the background of these scenes speak volumes about how exhausting it is to be caught in the crossfire of the Corinthos-Kane War. The scene at the Quartermaine mansion, where Giovanni Gio Palmieri spills what went down at the lake, is classic top-tier ensemble magic. Having Ned, Olivia, Danny, and Tracy all on hand to react to the news that Drew is okay was fantastic, giving us a beautiful cross-section of the family's current state. Danny's reaction was particularly poignant to me, considering he is already dealing with his father Jason stepping away from the mob and now has to process his uncle surviving a near-death experience. But it was Tracy Quartermaine who undeniably stole the entire episode. When Tracy snaps, "Drew on this property? Not happening!" I literally cheered at my screen. I feel so incredibly satisfied by Tracy's reaction because it anchors the show in its rich, uncompromising history. Tracy Quartermaine knows a threat when she sees one. Although she was willing to let Drew watch Scout practice her charity swim in the lake previously, she is absolutely not on board with a recovered Drew spending more time at the Quartermaine residence now. I think Tracy's refusal to let Drew back into their inner circle proves that she sees right through his charming facade to the ruthless, manipulative core underneath. The way I interpret it, Tracy is the only one who fully understands the danger a mobilized Drew Kane poses to their family's stability. Finally, the explosive tension at Alexis Davis's house is what truly cements this storyline as a masterpiece for me. Drew heading over to Alexis's place to insist he's taking charge of Scout, and her future now is a brilliant, terrifying character. Since Sam's tragic death at the hands of Cyrus, Alexis has been fiercely, almost fiercely protective of her grandchildren. The grief in that house is still a tangible, heavy presence. I think Drew proving he's as controlling as ever, and Alexis bravely voicing her complaints, created a scene brimming with historical and emotional weight. When Drew takes something Alexis says as a threat, the air in the room practically crackles with danger. I love the way the camera pushed in on Drew's face as his eyes hardened, showing that the trauma of being locked in has completely stripped away his empathy. I feel like Drew is using Scout not just as a daughter, but as a pawn to assert his dominance over the people who thought he was helpless. Alexis standing her ground, refusing to be bullied by a man who just miraculously walked out of a wheelchair, was a testament to her strength as a matriarch. But the true, undeniable emotional payoff comes when Scout walks back into Alexis's place and gets the shock of her young life. Seeing her father, fully recovered and standing before her, was a moment of pure daytime television magic. General Hospital spoilers teased that Scout would run into Drew's arms for a warm embrace, and watching that play out brought genuine tears to my eyes. I feel like this beautifully tragic moment perfectly encapsulates the duality of Drew. On one hand, he is a loving, devoted father to Scout, holding her tight and answering her rapid-fire questions with careful, measured answers. On the other hand, he is a ruthless, vengeful monster who is actively plotting the total destruction of his wife. I believe the writers are setting up an impossible conflict here. How can we root for Drew to get justice against Willow for the horrific abuse she inflicted upon him when we see how coldly he treats Alexis and how he manipulates the situation around his daughter? The way I see it, there are no heroes left in this storyline, only survivors fighting dirty in the... Every single character is compromised, every single choice is laced with poison, and I am absolutely here for every single second of it. This is character-driven drama at its absolute finest, rooting the high-stakes blackmail and medical miracles in the deep, messy, beating hearts of the people we have watched for. Will Drew's thirst for vengeance ultimately cost him the very daughter he is trying to reclaim, Or will Willow's house of cards finally collapse and bury her for good? Drop your wildest theories in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and join us next time as we continue to unpack the explosive secrets of Port Charles.